Good day. Thank you for watching me, Annurag Batra. Today I'm talking to somebody who's helming a large media services company which has become a very significant player post the merger of Omnicom and IPG. It's called Omnicom Media Group and Omnicom Media now. And today we are talking to Mr. Tony Harradine, who's the APAC CEO for Omnicom Media. He's visiting India. Naturally, India is a very big play for Omnicom Media. Let me welcome Tony to my conversation. Tony, thank you for making time.
Thank you for having
You
me.
can shake hands.
Lovely to meet
Yes.
you. Thank you very
And
much.
Tony, you've been coming a lot to India. Last year you were here a couple of times.
That's right.
Now that the merger has been done and it's 90 plus days of Omnicom Media, what has worked in the merger much better than you expected?
That's a good question. A lot's happened in 4 months, as I'm sure you can imagine. There's been a lot of positivity since the announcement, and it was a seismic change, right? A significant event, probably the most significant event to have happened in our industry in recent times. Two incredible businesses coming together to form a new business, and there's a lot of great legacy and heritage on both sides for Omnicom and Interpublic Group, especially here in India, right? I think the collaboration that we're already seeing between the two organisations has been something to behold, both here and across the region and globally. And in fact, as the merger happened, it was only a matter of days, in fact, that we were co-collaborating what the future operating model would look like for our business. With the ambition being that as we head on this journey of transformation, what are the components that we collectively will allow us to become a more powerful, more capable organisation than either organisation could have been in their own right. But I'd say collaboration, absolutely. Culture takes time, but that's obviously the next critical part of this. That takes a bit more time, but already we're seeing a lot of mutual support across the board in terms of both sides, cross-pollination of ideas, shared learnings. So I think that's been probably the standout component in the first few months.
Thank you, Tony. Now, a merger is never easy, and for a leader, seeing a merger happen, merger is about people. Tell us, what did you learn as a leader? You've been in your current responsibility, which is a large responsibility for a while, but such a merger is once in a lifetime.
It is.
What was special that came out of the merger?
Look, I think, and I've been through a few of these, and many members of the leadership team have been through a few of these. This is probably the most significant one that we've seen for all of us. What have I learned? You're only as good as the team around you, number one, because there's so much that's happening at pace and at scale. Obviously the expectation, my bosses to me, is to know what's happening, but you can only mobilize if you've got the team around you to do the work. And there's remarkable talent that's come from both sides, throughout this process. The need for communication as you go on the journey, because obviously, as you can imagine, for many of the people that are within the organisation today, there's there's been degrees of anxiety. There's a lot written about you when these things happen, right? A lot of assumptions made, and not always reality. It's weaponized commentary to unsettled clients. Competitors do that. We would do the same if it was the opposite, right? But I think communication has been a critical part of this process, and ensuring that over time we're giving absolute crystal clarity on everybody's role, everybody's teams, and what the future holds.
And especially, such integration is about keeping the client's interest foremost, and client-facing teams have pretty much remained the same, right? Give us a sense of, during this merger and now post this merger, how has been the client's response to the merger, and what are you doing to be able to further the cause of your clients by bringing the resources and the strengths of both the companies, so to say?
Yeah. So I mean, you referenced it there. I think the critical part of this whole acquisition has been that reassuring clients that it's business as usual. And I think we've signalled that in maintaining the agency brands. You know, they remain as the front door and the orchestrators of the capability that we're building. So we still have a strong belief in the heritage of those brands and what they stand for and the cultures that they built over the many years. So OMD, PhD, Initiative, and Lodestar here, and obviously Hearts, right? So I think preservation of those teams to give clients a reassurance that it's business as usual. Some of the more significant operational changes happening in the background in terms of some of the efficiencies required in bringing the capabilities together. But it's not just about efficiency, it's very much about creating connected ecosystems of expertise that the agencies can plug into and orchestrate. That's where a lot of the investment will happen over time. And obviously investment as it relates to the technology that underpins those teams and capabilities too, whether that's strategy, whether that's measurement, whether that's e-commerce, influencer. So that's where a lot of the work's happening now. But you know, inevitably when you go through something of this size, we're obviously very clear of what it means to us. What's critical is how we then articulate what it means to the client. So the first question on every client's lips is, well, that's good for you. What does this mean for me? You know, what's the additive component that this merger is going to bring? And we've spent the last 4 to 5 months ensuring that we're carefully articulating to clients what it really means for them.
And what does it mean for the clients?
Access to a much bigger pool of talent now. You know, obviously bringing together two incredible teams means and it's still a talent war in our business. I know we talk a lot about technology. Talent is still a critical component. It's the combination of both that ultimately deliver the magic. But I think that's a big part of it. And then coming on to technology, both Interpublic Group and Omnicom respectively built strong capability spines. We had Omni, they had Interact. The combination of both now in what will become the new Omni is something that's going to be very powerful, right? And it's a combination of both to build an end-to-end connected marketing orchestration platform, which we both had. But I think the new one, I know the new one, which was announced at CES, is going to be very exciting. The next stage of that is then localization, because as we know, Asia is a many different ecosystems, many endemic platforms, obviously different regulations around data. So in terms of how we shape that and how we plug in the data components, that will vary. So that's probably where the next big investment will lie.
Thank you, Tony. And talking specifically of India, post the merger, the Omnicom media presence is significant. Is the number 2 media services play, second only to WPP Media.
Yeah.
But there is also Publicis Media, which has done well in India and globally. How do you kind of differentiate your offering? What is your strategic differentiator in the Indian market? You've already talked about talent pool, you've talked about technology, Omni, but give us a sense of how do you really bring something deeper and which is proprietary?
I think we all talk similar games as it relates to technology. I think the differentiator will be what you build within those technological capabilities, the data that you bring, the scale that you bring to be able to the scale that you bring into those platforms in terms of data, the insights that it leads to, the way that you collaborate and interconnect as well, and the way that creativity, media, and certainly commerce and retail interconnect. I think we've always prided ourselves, Omnicom, in the way that we collaborate, and the same can be said for IPG. I think so. The combination of that is going to be a big differentiator for us. We are now the number one agency group in terms of scale. But again, I think some of our competitors, one here in particular, have played on that narrative for many, many years. I don't think that means anything in today's world unless it's intellectually applied. So scale's great, but it's only as good as what you do with it and how you apply it as well. And I think that's something we've always believed in because we've been a challenger in many markets. So we've got a challenger mindset, but with the scale behind us now, I think that it will give us a strong competitive edge.
Tony, you're a veteran of this domain. 20 years back, there was this move from integrated services offering to unbundling of agency functions, which is what led to the media services or the AOR business, as we would traditionally call it. In the last 2-3 years, have you observed a trend of clients wanting a kind of a integrated approach in media services, not having to deal with a separate performance agency, separate programmatic, separate media services, separate media planning, separate experiential? What's happening? Because you have a vantage point of observing this in many markets.
I'd say historically it's been cyclical in terms of, you're right, separating, coming together, separating, coming together. I think clients now, certain clients are looking for enterprise level partnerships, one agency to do everything. And again, Omnicom has the ability to do that. However, there are still clients like healthy tension and a village of agencies. And again, we can provide that too. So I don't think it's, I think there was a narrative, a trend emerging the last 18 months around certainly big clients looking for more of a holistic, simplified operating structure. Again, subject to how those businesses have landed in the respective agencies they've chosen. It means that it will remain the course or it may change again. I think what I love about this business is the constant state of flux that it's in terms of the changing direction of these things. We need to ensure that we're set up to be able to provide both because, same with in-housing as well, right? There's a trend of in-housing. There's a trend of then moving it back into an agency. So I think as long as we can support both narratives, and we can, we're obviously, we want to be the go-to set of capabilities and teams a client would use. But again, if a client looks at us as to enhance their efforts to in-house, we can provide those services too through our technology stack and our sort of consultative services support. So I'd certainly say there has been a trend, but I don't know if that will be the prevailing trend forever. I think it will constantly chop and change. So we need to be prepared to be able to manage both.
Tony, in the last few weeks, there's been conversation globally about outcome-based remuneration.
Yeah.
Do you think media agencies are geared up to be able to do that?
We are. I think all of us are preparing to become more prone to that. I mean, with the onset of agentic and AI capabilities doing more and more of the heavy lifting, the current compensation structures inevitably will need to pivot away from full-time equivalent, so paid via number of headcount or through commission structures. It is going to have to pivot to a much greater degree on other commercial and compensatory metrics. So if business outcomes is the go-to, and we believe for certain clients that is the case, then we will inevitably structure commercial arrangements with clients that talk to that. I think that will be a journey, though. I don't think any agency is fully there yet. I don't think any client's fully there yet because there's obviously a lot of factors that come into play when you move to that model, factors that are also outside of the agency's control, right? If it's measured on units moving off of shelves, there's many factors that affect that beyond just the role that we play. But certainly it's an area that we're playing in now and that we continue to review and adopt.
Again, there is a view that client decide. I mean, of course, media agencies as experts propose a media plan and the specific choices, but the creatives are being decided by the client. The media is being approved by the client. Why should be the onus on the agency? The client is taking all the calls. So the outcomes may be dependent on the client calls rather than the media. So will it also mean the clients listening more to their marketing advisors, both on the creative side and on the media services side? Do you think that needs to happen for this outcome-based remuneration model to work?
I think it would have to, right? I think it's only fair that if you're being held to account on delivery, because that's how you're compensated, there needs to be obviously a degree of trusting the knowledge and the inputs that the agency is providing. So, absolutely. And then it's incumbent on us to ensure that we've got the seniority and expertise of talent, and I guess the data and technologies to back it up, to give clients the confidence that our calls are the right calls.
Once the agency fees come down, it's very difficult to take them up. But if we have to really win the talent war, and I'm not talking at an agency level, but at an industry level,
Yeah.
To attract better talent, we also need to make more money. We meaning the media services
Yeah.
agencies. Do you think the 3% remuneration, which is the average remuneration in India, some cases maybe 4.5%, 5.
Yeah.
I'm talking average, but definitely between 3 and 5. Do you think it needs to go up, and will it ever go up?
I think it's going to be based on the additive services we can bring to the client. So yes, there might be a baseline in terms of some of the more traditional roles that an agency would play for a client that arguably have been commoditized. It's incumbent on us to make sure that we're bringing more high-level thinking and consultative solutions to clients to justify a more compelling commercial metric for us. So outer scopes, deeper advanced capabilities. Again, tech platform fees may pay a bigger part of what we do longer term. The cost to build some of these capabilities that we're bringing, that at some point needs to be compensated for. So, rate card against services that are both technological as well as people is going to be a component. We also need to look at how we structure ourselves for success, that if there is competitiveness in terms of rates, what are the components of the role that we do today that can be more automated and more driven by machines, obviously with human intervention and oversight, to allow us to reinvest at the more consultative end of what we deliver, right? So repeatable tasks. A lot of that heavy lifting can be done by machinery, and we should be investing more in the individuals that are generalists and that can go to a client and talk solutions.
Brilliant. Since you talked about solutions and advice, media services in some way are feeling the heat from the McKinseys, which come and provide a certain kind of advice to marketeers or brand owners or business owners. And then there are the Accentures of the world. Do you see them as competition, or you think what you provide is distinctively different and unique than what they provide?
I think inevitably there is some overlap. Our differentiator would be that we are not consultants in isolation. We connect consultant level thinking with implementation. I think that's probably the key. It's all very well and good to have advice and theories. I think the best operators are those that can do that, but put it into practice and have proof of concept, take the learnings and use that then to advise the next set of strategies and approaches that one would take.
And how's Indian media services market similar to what you see in your role as APAC CEO in China, in Japan, in other markets like Indonesia, Australia, and how is it different?
I'd say that India is probably one of the most dynamic and exciting markets that I oversee, and at scale as well. I mean, the scale here is significant, and it's growing exponentially. It's also it's a hotbed of innovation. It's got one of the most diverse and dynamic digital ecosystems, and what's great about it is that it borrows from overseas, but it also invents. It observes. It co-creates, and it also innovates in India, right? And we're seeing a lot of rising trends emerge from India, like quick commerce and things of this nature. Right? It's a very dynamic ecosystem. But again, a bit like China now and several years ago, it's happening at scale. Right? It's entrepreneurial, but with a significant scale behind it.
Good. Have you consciously see if you have to be big in a country, you have to work with homegrown giants, right?
Yeah.
Indian entrepreneurs, Indian businesses, while you have a roster of global clients. Do you think you'll be focusing a lot on growing those kind of relationships in the near future?
Definitely.
Because Indian companies and Indian entrepreneurs are growing.
I think our most successful markets are always those that have the blend of global multinational businesses and a hotbed of big local businesses. I think in terms of attracting talent locally, a lot of talent wants to work on famous brands that are homegrown as well. I think that's a real benefit. And interestingly enough, when you look at the two businesses that have just come together, IPG, in terms of its heritage, have always been very strong in big local businesses, deep rooted client relationships. And Omnicom, as a later entrant, hung its hat on really big global relationships initially. The Apples of this world, a lot of the big automotive giants, was our bread and butter. Under Kartik's leadership, that's become more diverse in that it's global and local. But I think the coming together now, we've definitely got the best of both worlds. I think in our most successful markets, you're looking, if not 50-50, probably 60-70% local, 30% global clients. You need both to run a successful agency network, I think.
And Tony, we are in March 2026. Over the next 12 months, what should we expect from Omnicom Media in India as significant investments, whether they are in people or they're in technology, whether they're in AI? What should we expect new? Of course, it's still early days for the merger. Uh, the teams have been integrated while they're client facing independently. What should we expect from Omnicom Media over the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think certainly clarity of our future operating model will land within the coming weeks, without a doubt. There's a lot of work happening there behind the scenes now. Already some of that's landing in many of the pitches that we're having. We're having to show potential clients under the hood. We've obviously had some of those discussions with existing clients as well, but there'd be more visibility on that. Visibility as it relates to our technology and our capability, namely Omni, and how that will play out. Investments in localization of that as well. So we obviously have a very clear roadmap now of what that looks like, but it has to work and function at scale here. So there'd be investments in that regard. And then look, as we go through the process of team alignment and scopes within that, I'm sure there'll be gaps that we need to fill as well. So yeah, expect very good things to come in India.
No conversation in business or in advertising and media services can be complete without talking about the impact of AI on the services. When you talk to clients, they are of course talking about digital capabilities, but increasingly they're talking of AI capabilities. You throughout the conversation refer to Omni and how Omni was launched at CES, but give a sense of uh, how is the investments from Omnicom Media in AI offerings really differentiated from whatever else is being offered in the marketplace.
I think we had an advantage at Omnicom in that we lent in early. Omni's development was many years ago, and then what we've seen on Interact has been quite honestly equally as impressive. I think the advantage will be that we've had two development ecosystems now coming together to create something more powerful. So there's been a lot of learning for both sides along the way. The intention now is that we take the best of both. The other impressive asset that's come about as a result of the acquisition is obviously Axiom, which was a significant purchase of IPG's many years back. How that will now underpin the new Omni is going to be something quite special, we believe. Axiom's a very impressive business, and one of the probably one of the most important assets that we've landed in this entire process. So we're very excited.
Good. If I talk to you, let's say 18 to 36 months from now, what would have Omnicom Media in India achieved when I talk to you in 18 months or 36 months? What are your top three priorities going forward?
Top three priorities would be ensuring that we've organised ourselves in a way that makes us more powerful and more formidable than we were before. So look, we've got ambitions to be number one in this market. Number one can be defined in many different ways. It doesn't always have to be about scale, but it could take many forms. But we want to ensure that we are number one in the markets we operate in. Certainly in terms of the culture that we build, we want to be the place that the best talent wants to come to, and that's going to be hinged on culture, opportunities, and the client relationships that we hold. Obviously, the clients that you hold reflects the kind of business that you are. We want to ensure that our narrative is succinct and clear. It's an increasingly complex and diverse industry. Clients are looking for simplicity. We haven't done our job properly if we haven't succinctly articulated what it is that we bring. So a bit of work there still to be done, but again, we're already quite advanced on that journey.
My last question.
Sure.
Throughout you talked about talent, you talked about technology, because Omni is that. Now you talked about culture. The most difficult part of any integration or any merger is what parts of culture to retain and what parts of culture that go away. You consciously don't want something to go away, but you have no control. I mean, how would you define the culture of Omnicom Media in India?
How would I define it? Look, I think we're fortunate of all the holding companies to have come together. I would say that IPG and Omnicom are probably the most closely aligned. Of course, there's still some differences, and I think I've touched upon already maybe some of the differences when we speak about the deep heritage that Interpublic had in India. Omnicom's probably always been seen a little bit more as a challenger mindset, right? But what both organisations had and will continue to have, I think entrepreneurialism would be one. I think the need for curiosity, that breeds innovation. I think that attracts top talent. I think you can still be big but agile and entrepreneurial. So I'd say they're probably some key attributes. Somebody that puts culture at the forefront in terms of opportunities to learn, to grow. Collaboration, I'd say, is a big one as well. It's happened inherently at Omnicom. It's never been forced. It's just worked, and we want that to maintain. We want to create environments and spaces for that to continue on. Collaboration with our counterparts at Omnicom Advertising, the Editor in India, that's key as well. Particularly as we spoke about more and more integration. So I think collaboration, innovation, entrepreneurialism would be three of the things I'd say.
And would any acquisitions locally would be on the cards, or you focus more on consolidating what we have and then maybe look at acquisitions? Any possibilities of looking at acquisitions in the technology space or in any capabilities, whether it's in retail or in the creator economy?
Potentially, yes. I think organising what we have will inevitably know then what we need. And if there was to be an acquisition post this, it certainly would be in the area of specialised capability. And you've named some of the areas right there, top of mind at the moment: retail, retail commerce, influence of these areas potentially. But we'll have to see. Early days.
And why do you always in Bombay? You don't come to Delhi at all?
I will. I promise I'll get there soon. And
It's a nice city too.
I come and say hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But thank you, Tony,
Thank you
for
very
talking
much.
to BW Business World and BW Marketing World.